What's up guys, my name is Jay Yudlovsky. My company is Focus Photography and Design, and here on YouTube, I hope to help you with your photography. If you like Photoshop, Lightroom, and photography, consider subscribing to my channel. I try to release a new video every week. In this video, I want to talk about a new technique I learned for taking real estate photos and how to post-process those real estate photos to get the best results. So let's get into it. So here we are in Lightroom, and in this method that I learned recently, it's not something that I came up with, it's something I found some other real estate photographers doing, and I liked the idea and wanted to give it a shot. So what it is taking a photograph of the room or the area with your flash on, and then taking another photograph of the room using just the ambient light in the room. Then you bring these two images into Photoshop, we combine them, and you get a really nice looking photograph. I think it's really important to have good real estate photos when you're trying to sell a home. Everybody starts looking online, and you don't want photos that don't do the house justice. Even a house that, you know, might not be great can be presented well through good photography. And I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad photography that you see in the real estate market out there. You just go look on Zillow or anywhere else online, and you see a lot of bad imagery for houses that are, say, I don't know, are under the $1 million mark or whatever. So let's get into it. So first I'm going to get started with these two images here. So first I have an image with just the ambient light in the room. Then I also took an image with my flash. Now here I was able to, you know, set my shutter speed so that I could, you know, pull in a little bit of the outside here. Obviously the shades are drawn in this picture, so it doesn't matter so much. But we're going to bring these over to Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how we can combine them together. One thing that I do here in Lightroom first, if I jump over to Develop module here, I might make a couple small adjustments to the exposure or the shadows just to kind of give it an even look. This goes for the ambient and the flash shots. So I'll just kind of very slightly modify them if I feel it's necessary. The other thing I will do is I will go down to lens corrections. I will remove chromatic aberrations and enable profile corrections. Now you could transform and do that before you bring it over to Photoshop, so that way everything aligns. Although I've had some problems with that where things don't line up. I don't know if it's Lightroom sets the verticals different, even though the camera's on a tripod, and in the very end, once everything's complete. Leave my other settings, and to get these over to Photoshop, very simple. I just select both pictures, gonna come up to Photo, Edit in, Open as Layers in Photoshop. Now we have our two images in Photoshop. The first thing I wanna do is put the ambient layer on top of the flash layer. So here I have the ambient layer on top. I'm going to select both layers, and I want to auto-align these to the camera while it was on the tripod. To do that, I'm going to select both layers. I'm going to go to Edit, Auto-Align Layers. And I typically do the auto setting, click OK, and Photoshop aligns the layers for us. The next thing I want to do, if you want, but if you're only using two layers, it's not, you know, that big a deal, I don't think. So you come to the ambient layer, we want to add a mask on top of it, because what we're going to do is use the flash layer for our base image, and we're going to use the ambient layer to bring in some light into the darker areas of the flash image. So I'm going to come to the top layer. I want to put a mask on there. So I'm going to hold Option or Alt and click the layer mask. It's going to make it black, which hides it. Next thing I want to do is get my brush tool. I'm going to press B. I want to click on my layer mask right here. Make sure that I have that selected. Down here in your colors, you want to make sure you have black and white. To quickly set that, you can press D. And that'll set your black to your white. So white is going to show what is on this layer when I paint on the layer mask. The next thing I want to do is come up to my flow and set it to around anywhere between 4 and 6% has been what I've found works pretty good. I'm going to go with 5% here. You can leave your opacity normal. And the next thing I want to do is just get a big brush, and I'm going to start just painting in really easily. Now, it's a little bit easier for me to paint in. I have a Wacom tablet here with a pen, which makes it a lot easier when you're trying to paint in anything on an image, really. But you can certainly do it with a mouse as well. So I'm on my layer mask, and I'm just going to start painting in. And you can see here, it's brightening the ceiling up. I'm going to come down the wall, brighten that up a little bit. And you can just adjust the size of your brush as you need. Now in this image here, just a note, I did forget to turn on that light. Typically I turn on all the lights in the room. Forgot that one, but that's all right. Sometimes it happens. I'm going to make a smaller brush and just kind of paint on these curtains just a little bit. And I'm going to start painting on the bed a little just so you can get some of that ambient light coming through. And it'll kind of change, you know, the look of the image a little bit, which is kind of nice. You know, it'll darken around the edges here a little bit. Brightening up the dark areas. And if you ever put too much in, all you have to do is press X, so you have black on your brush, and you can paint on your mask there, and it'll paint it away. So that way you don't have to see whatever it is you don't want to see from that layer. A little bit of light on the carpet here. Add some ambient light, which is nice. It also helps tone down the flash a little bit. If you get a little shiny spot here, like on the door, you just paint that away a little bit. And the ambient layer will help hide that. And maybe I want to just brighten up these windows a little bit, maybe where you can see the wood here. So you can see the difference. It's hard to see while you're doing it. It's very subtle. But if we go from the flash picture and then we add in some of the ambient light we painted in, you can see there's a lot more depth to the room. Makes it more evenly lit and does a nice job. And you can take as long as you want here, you know, painting in different areas. So then to get this image back in the Lightroom, all you have to do is press Command or Control S to save it. Photoshop will save it, and then it'll automatically get added back into Lightroom. When we get back to Lightroom, that's where we'll correct for our verticals. And our image is added in here. The next thing I'm going to do to finish up this image is go to Transform and do verticals. And then from here, I can make any more adjustments that I might want to make. Say I want a little more, you know, contrast, drop shadows a little, or raise the shadows a little, drop the highlights, maybe a little clarity I like to do. Can add a little vibrance if you want. Tone curve, I usually go with a medium contrast. I try to keep in mind that make these images have a little more pop, because when they're online and they're small, you can add a little more contrast or a little more clarity to it. And I think it helps just kind of catch a viewer's eye a little bit more. It doesn't have to be so subtle since they're not being printed and really just being viewed online. You can add a little extra saturation or contrast, and really I think that's fine. So there we go. Made a few more adjustments here in Lightroom, and this image is all set. One thing you do want to check is make sure that you crop any areas if you need to. You can see up here we have a little bit of white from where we align the images, so I'm just going to press R and crop it down just a little bit. And there you go. This image is all set. So let's check out another image. Here's another image of a foyer. So this is the ambient shot, and here's a shot with the flash. So I'm going to take these two images and I'm going to combine them together. And in these two images, again, I did make a few minor adjustments up here in the basic panel, as well as my lens corrections. So I'm going to take these two images, select both, Photo, Edit in, Open as layers in Photoshop. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. We have both layers in here. Have my ambient layer on top, my flash layer on the bottom. I'm going to select both layers, go to Edit, Auto Align Layers. I use the auto setting here. I'm going to click OK. Make sure our layers are aligned. Come back to my top ambient layer. I'm going to hide that with a layer mask. Control or Option, click the layer mask. I'm going to select the mask here. Press letter B for my brush. Make sure I have white set as my color. And I'm just going to start to paint in my image. Oh, make sure you have your flow up here at 5%. Between 4 and 6% I find works pretty good. I'm going to make a nice big brush. And I'm just going to start brushing in on the layer mask. Because you can tell the flash shots or flash images are pretty harsh. And you can see it takes away the shadows here. See, I'm just painting it away. And also when I paint in the ambient here, it'll brighten up this room, which is nice. Okay, so here we go with the ambient painted in. Here's the before, just the flash shot. And we paint in some of our ambient, it smooths out the shot a lot. Now, I think it could use more contrast and a little bit of clarity, but we can take care of that once we get back into Lightroom. So again, to get back to Lightroom, Command or Control S, we're going to save it. Once it saves, we'll close it, and it'll automatically bring it back into Lightroom. So here we are back in Lightroom. We have our image over here. I'm going to come down, do my verticals. I'm going to hit vertical. I'm going to crop in just a little bit. Looks like there's a little white over here. So I'm going to press R. Crop it in just a little bit. Actually, you know what? I might pull it over so we don't see this side of the wall over here. I don't think that's necessary. There we go. Crop that in. Now I might make some basic adjustments here. Actually, I'm going to start tone curve. Go to medium contrast. I'm going to come up to the basic panel. Add in a little more contrast. Around 50. Drop the highlights a little bit. Shadows I think are okay. Now whites, sometimes I automatically set them just to see what that looks like. If you hold the shift key and double click on whites, it sets the white point for you. Double click the blacks, it sets the black point for you. And I don't know if I like that. So I'll just leave the blacks at 0. I'm going to boost the clarity a little bit. And that's about it. This image is all set. One more example here is a shot of the dining room. Here I'm going to select these two images. Again, I have my flash image and I have my ambient image. So you can see here in the flash image, the kitchen on the left-hand side here is all dark, but we're going to be able to bring in that kitchen with the ambient light using the ambient image. So I'm going to select these two. I've made, again, a couple minor adjustments, and then I've also corrected my lens corrections. So now I'm going to bring these over into Photoshop. I'm going to select both of them, Photo, Edit in, Open as Layers in Photoshop. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. Again, I have my ambient layer on top, my flash layer on the bottom. I'm going to select both layers. I'm going to go to Edit, Auto Align Layers, the auto setting, click OK. Now our layers are aligned. I'm going to select my top ambient layer. I'm going to add a layer mask to that by holding Alt or Option and then clicking the mask. That's going to make a black mask, which again hides the ambient layer. I'm going to make sure I have the mask selected by clicking on it. I'm going to then press B for my brush. Make sure I have my colors set to white and black. Quickly do that by pressing letter D. And now I'm going to paint in the ambient layer. I'm going to paint in on the layer mask here and bring in some of that ambient light. So I usually start on the ceilings, just kind of paint it in a little bit. One thing that's nice about painting in the ambient layer is if you have reflections from your flash, painting in the ambient layer actually helps reduce those reflections. Now, if you get a reflection from, say, the dog here, you see the white from the ambient, I think that's a little too much. What I'll do is I'll just paint black back on that layer and just very easily paint that out. Paint out the flash here. Here you can see I'm painting away some of the reflections from the flash. Okay, so there we go. So I think that helped improve the image a little bit. So if I turn off the ambient layer, there's the flash layer, blend the two together, and it looks great. So if I were to turn off the blending here, that's the ambient layer, that's the flash layer, and when we put them together, we get a nice blend of the two. So I'm going to save this, bring it back in the Lightroom, make any final adjustments, correct for my verticals, and we'll be all set to go with this image. Here we are back in Lightroom with our image. I'm going to come down to Transform, select Verticals. Sometimes auto works better. You know, you just try which one, try them both, see which one you like. I'm going to make a couple minor adjustments maybe and boost the contrast a little bit, drop the highlights just a little. I'm going to set the auto white point, see how that looks. Auto black point, not too bad. Change it to medium contrast into the tone curve. Going to add some clarity, a little bit of vibrance in there. And that's it, your image is set to go. So I hope this was helpful in showing you a new technique that I've been using to take real estate photos and how to blend a flash and an ambient image together. This is a great way to do it. I think it works out really well. You kind of get the best of both worlds here. It doesn't look too flashy, with shadows and everything, and you get a nice balanced image. And I think it's really important to have great images for any house that you're selling, whether it's a small, inexpensive home or whether it's a multi-million-dollar home. I think it's important to have great images online so that people are attracted to the house and want to come and look at it and potentially attract a buyer. So if you have any questions on how to do this method or you're having any trouble, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll be happy to help you out if I can. Thanks for stopping by and checking out my YouTube channel. If you like Photoshop, Lightroom, and photography, consider subscribing to my channel. I try to release a new video every week. If you'd like to see more videos about real estate photography, how to get into it, how to photograph different rooms, different techniques and tips, leave a comment below. And I'd be happy to make some more videos just sharing my experience of how I handle real estate photography. Subscribe over here, subscribe over there. We'll pick the subscribe button over here, and I'll put some more videos over here.